Listen to me closely. I am not here to tell you a fairy tale. I am here to pull back the curtain on the ugly, uncomfortable truth that nobody wants to talk about. You have been told that friends are there for you, that they are your support system, your backbone. But let me tell you the reality. Nobody is actually your friend until you reach the finish line. It sounds harsh, right? It feels cold. But think about it. People love to cheer for you when you are just like them. They love to support you when you are struggling because your struggle makes them feel comfortable. It makes them feel like they are doing okay. But the moment you start to change, the moment your ambition gets too big for the room you are in, they start to panic. They stop calling. They stop showing up. They stop asking how you are doing. Why? Because you are no longer a mirror reflecting their own life back at them. You are a reminder of everything they are too afraid to go after. You thought they were real. You trusted them. You gave them your time, your energy, and your loyalty. And when you needed them most, they vanished into thin air. It hurts. I know it does. I have been there. I have sat in the silence of a room that felt like a prison, wondering why the people I loved were acting like strangers. But here is the lesson you need to learn. The only person who will be standing next to you when you finally win is the person you see in the mirror every single morning. This is not theory. This is not some quote I pulled from a book. This is the life I lived. This is the fire I walked through. If you are feeling invisible right now, if you feel like you are shouting into the void and nobody is listening, if you feel left behind, do not turn this off. Today, I am going to show you how I turned that crushing silence into my greatest weapon. I am going to show you how I turned my pain into raw power. And most importantly, I am going to show you that you do not need an army behind you to succeed. You only need one person to believe in the vision. And that person is you. Let me take you back to where it all began. Let me show you what it really looks like to walk the path alone. This is not just about changing your life. It is about changing how you think, how you speak, and how you see the world. If you want to grow, if you want to sharpen your mind and your language, stick with me. Your journey starts now. Chapter 1. The Boy Who Dreamt in the Dark. My name is Leo. I grew up in a place called Oak Creek, a small, sleepy town where the skyline never changed, and the biggest ambition anyone had was just to make it to the weekend. My dad worked at the local mill, and my mom kept the house running on a shoestring budget. We were far from rich, but we got by. Yet, even as a kid, I felt like I was living in a coat that was 2 sizes too small. I felt like I was meant for something bigger, something that stretched beyond the borders of our town. I remember standing at the bus stop when I was 18, surrounded by the guys I had grown up with. I was buzzing with energy. I told them, I am going to build something real. I am going to master the digital world, start my own business, and see parts of the globe that we only ever saw on the evening news. They looked at me like I had just started speaking a foreign language. One of them, a guy I had shared my lunch with for years, just shook his head and laughed. He pointed at my beat-up sneakers and my phone with the spiderweb cracks on the screen and said, "Leo, look at yourself. You are talking about millions, but you cannot even afford a new pair of shoes." Another guy chimed in, telling me to get my head out of the clouds and find a job at the plant before I ended up with nothing. I forced a smile, but deep down, it felt like a punch to the gut. These were not strangers. These were my people. I had helped them with their schoolwork and stood up for them when things got rough. But the moment I dared to dream beyond our reality, they turned on me. They did not hate my dream because it was bad. They hated it because it was a mirror. It showed them that change was possible, and they were too scared to try. The rejection did not stop with my friends. When I sat my uncle down and told him about my plans for a small online venture, he looked at me with pity. He told me that people from our side of town do not do things like that. He said, stay in your lane, get a steady paycheck, and be normal. Even my father, the man I looked up to, told me to stop wasting my time on fairy tales. I felt crushed. I felt like a ghost, invisible in a room full of people who refused to see the fire I was trying to light. But that night, sitting in my tiny room, something shifted. I looked around at the peeling wallpaper, the fan that rattled like a dying engine, and my phone that barely held a charge. I realized that nobody was going to hand me a map to a better life. The world only cares about the end result. They do not care about the late nights, the struggle, or the effort you pour into your craft. They only care when you win. So in that quiet, suffocating room, I made a silent vow. If nobody else was going to cheer for me, I would be my own loudest supporter. If nobody believed in the vision, I would turn my work into the only proof they would ever need. That was the moment I stopped looking for approval and started looking for a way out. Everything changed that night, not because my circumstances improved, but because I finally decided that I would be the one to change them. Chapter 2: The Silent Grind. After that night, my world felt different, even though nothing in my room had changed. The walls were still bare, my phone screen was still shattered, and my bank account was still sitting at zero. But the internal shift was massive. I stopped talking about my plans. I stopped posting cryptic updates on social media. I stopped trying to convince my friends that I was onto something. I had learned the hard way that people do not care about your blueprints, they only care about the finished building. I started waking up at 5 a.m. sharp. My house was small and thin-walled, so by 7 a.m. it was chaos. I needed those 2 hours of peace to keep my sanity. I would brew a cup of tea, pull out a battered notebook, and sit on the floor where the light was best. I had no high-speed internet, so I would walk to a local cafe once a week, buy the cheapest coffee on the menu, and use their Wi-Fi to download every free tutorial I could find. I was like a sponge, soaking up everything from digital marketing basics to advanced English grammar. When my phone died, which happened constantly, I didn't quit. I'd light a candle, pull out the notes I had scribbled down, and drill them into my brain until I could recite them in my sleep. I spent hours talking to my own reflection in the bathroom mirror. I would look myself in the eye and say, Leo, you are going to master this language. You are going to build this business. You are going to make it out of here. There were nights when I broke down in tears, feeling completely isolated, but I kept going. I was the only one who believed in the dream, so I had to be the one to keep it alive. My social life vanished, and people started to notice. They'd ask why I wasn't coming to the Friday night hangouts, or why I was suddenly so busy. When I told them I was working on my future, they'd roll their eyes or make a snide comment about me thinking I was better than them. Some just stopped hitting me up altogether. It stung, but I didn't push back. I knew that protecting my energy was the price of admission for the life I wanted. To keep the lights on, I took 2 part-time gigs. I spent my days hauling crates at a local warehouse and my evenings scrubbing floors at a small diner. My hands were always rough and my back ached from the grind. But every time I walked through my front door, I dropped the exhaustion and picked up my notebook. While my peers were out partying or mindlessly scrolling through feeds, I was studying email templates and practicing my pronunciation. I wasn't doing it to show off. I was doing it because I was starving for a different kind of life. I was desperate for the kind of freedom that nobody could take away from me. I was becoming my own teacher, my own mentor, and my own biggest fan, building a foundation in the dark that would eventually hold the weight of my success. Chapter 3: The Valley of Silence. After 2 years of absolute dedication, I hit a wall that almost broke me. I was no longer that clueless boy from Oak Creek. My English was sharp, my discipline was rock solid, and I had learned the ropes of the digital world. Yet, looking at my life from the outside, nothing had changed. I was still in the same cramped room, still rocking the same beat-up phone, and still scraping by. This is the stage where most people throw in the towel. It is not the beginning that kills your dream. It is the long, quiet middle where you put in the work but see zero return. I decided it was time to stop just learning and start swinging. I dove headfirst into the world of freelancing. I spent weeks crafting the perfect profile, uploading samples of my writing, and refining my pitch. I hit that publish button with my heart hammering against my ribs, convinced that my new life was just a click away. But the reality check was brutal. Day 1, silence. Day 7, silence. I spent every spare moment firing off proposals, obsessing over every word, only to be met with total indifference. The rejection started piling up like trash. Not selected. Client chose someone else. No response. I was doing everything by the book, but the world didn't seem to care. Those old, nasty voices I thought I had buried started to creep back in. Maybe I wasn't smart enough. Maybe those guys at the bus stop were right all along. This is a specific kind of pain that nobody talks about. The agony of giving your absolute best and being met with absolute nothingness. I'd sit there at night, staring at my phone, praying for a notification that never came. I stopped feeling motivated. I was just hollow. I watched my old friends move on. Some landed decent jobs. Others were posting photos of new bikes and vacations. I was genuinely happy for them, but it cut deep to see them cruising while I was stuck in neutral. Jealousy is a nasty beast, and it tried to poison my mind every single day. One night, at the end of my rope, I lay on the floor and whispered, "Maybe this just isn't for me." That thought terrified me, because I knew if I let it take root, it was game over. I stayed in that dark headspace for a while, until a memory flicked on like a light bulb. I remembered the laughter at the bus stop. I remembered their faces, so sure of my failure. And in that moment, something clicked. I didn't get this far to just stop. I sat up, calm as ever, and made a choice. I would stop measuring my worth by the money in my bank account and start measuring it by the effort I put in every single day. I stopped chasing success and started chasing consistency. I wasn't doing it for the applause anymore. I was doing it to prove to the only person who mattered, myself, that I could endure the silence until the noise finally started. Chapter 4. The breakthrough that almost went unnoticed. The shift did not arrive with a thunderclap or a parade. It happened on a Tuesday morning, quiet and unassuming. I was slumped over my desk, eyes heavy, mindlessly refreshing my job dashboard for the 100th time, when a notification popped up. It was just a simple message from a potential client. "Hey Leo, I checked out your writing samples. They've got a real voice. Are you free to take on a small blog project?" I stared at that screen for a long beat, my heart doing the slow, steady rhythm. I didn't jump up or shout. I just breathed. After months of being ghosted and hundreds of rejections, someone had finally said yes. I typed my reply with steady hands, making sure I sounded professional, not desperate. The task was straightforward, a 500-word piece on productivity. To the world, it was just another blog post. To me, it was the validation I had been clawing for. I spent hours on it, polishing every sentence, reading it aloud until the rhythm felt perfect. When I hit send, I waited. An hour dragged by, then 2. Finally, a response. "Great work, Leo. I'm sending the payment now. Looking forward to more." The payment was $10. That's it. Some might look at that and scoff, but to me, it felt like a gold bar. It wasn't about the money, it was the proof. It was the physical evidence that I wasn't just chasing shadows. It meant that all those freezing mornings, the cracked phone screen, and the lonely hours of self-study were worth something. I held that $10 milestone like it was the most important thing I'd ever owned. I didn't tell a soul. I knew my old circle wouldn't get it. They'd just see a $10 bill and wonder why I was wasting my time. They didn't see the years of grinding that paved the way for that single transaction. That night, I wrote a single line in my journal. Today, I proved them wrong, even if I'm the only one who knows it. That $10 win was the spark that changed everything. I stopped playing the part of the amateur and started operating like a pro. I became more strategic, focusing on building long-term relationships rather than just chasing quick payouts. I invested my time in sharpening my communication and refining my digital presence. Slowly, the $10 checks turned into 50, then 300. I didn't need to borrow bus money from my dad anymore. I could finally afford a decent internet plan. I was no longer just a kid with a dream. I was a worker, a builder. And the best part? I didn't need the world to notice yet. I was finding a rhythm that belonged solely to me. I learned that your first win isn't meant to make you rich. It's meant to prove that you are not helpless. It's the proof that you can, in fact, change the trajectory of your life if you are willing to stay in the game long after everyone else has walked away. Chapter 5. The day the world finally woke up. Years rolled by, and the grind became my default setting. I kept my head down, working with a quiet, relentless consistency that had nothing to do with luck and everything to do with showing up when I wanted to quit. I was making a steady living online, finally able to pay my bills without that pit of anxiety in my stomach. But to the outside world, I was still just Leo, the guy who stayed in his room too much. I wasn't flaunting wealth, I wasn't posting highlight reels, and I certainly wasn't asking for validation. Then the turning point hit. A client I had been working with for months sent me a message that changed the trajectory of my career. He told me he'd been watching my work ethic and my results, and he wanted me to lead his entire content department. The contract was long-term, and the pay was enough to completely shift my family's quality of life. I sat there in silence for a long time, looking at that offer, thinking about the version of me that used to cry over $10 payments. That kid had no idea what was coming, but he had the guts to keep pushing. Once I accepted that role, everything shifted. My name started circulating in professional circles. People who hadn't spoken to me in years suddenly started popping up in my messages. "Hey man, I always knew you had it in you. Let's grab a coffee. I'd love to hear how you pulled it off." I recognized every single one of them. They were the same people who had laughed at my broken phone and my big dreams back at the bus stop. For a split second, the old anger flared up. I wanted to ask them where they were when I was eating dry bread and working until my eyes burned. But then, a calm washed over me. I realized they didn't hate me back then. They just couldn't see past their own limitations. They only respect the finished product. They only clap for the winner. So I didn't waste my energy on bitterness. I didn't feel the need to explain my journey or prove my point. I just kept moving. I bought a small place of my own, started taking care of my parents, and finally gave my family the life they deserve. I became the first person in my circle to build a career entirely on my own terms, and I did it without waiting for a single person to give me the green light. If you are still listening, take this to heart. You do not need the world to believe in you. You only need to be the one person who refuses to give up on yourself. When you finally win, the people who doubted you will show up, but you won't need their approval anymore. You will have something much better, the quiet, unshakable knowledge that you built your life from nothing, all on your own. 13 hard-won lessons from the journey. 1. Results are the only language the world speaks. You can talk about your vision until you are blue in the face, but nobody cares until they see the actual output. Stop explaining your dream and start building it, because the world only listens once you have something to show. 2. Silence is a superpower. I didn't shout my goals from the rooftops. I worked in the shadows while everyone else was busy chasing likes or venting their frustrations. True growth doesn't need an audience. If you are working in total silence right now, don't feel small. You are just focusing your energy where it actually counts. 3. Every rejection is just a filter. Those hundreds of no's nearly broke me, but they were actually testing my resolve. Each one was just a stepping stone. Don't look at a rejection as a dead end. Look at it as a clearance test. If you keep showing up, the yes is eventually inevitable. 4. Your first win is a mental game, not a financial one. That first $10 check wasn't about the money. It was about proving to myself that I wasn't crazy. Your first small success is the anchor that keeps you steady when the waves get rough. 5. People drift away, and that is okay. When you start leveling up, the people who were comfortable with the old you will inevitably fall off. Don't call it betrayal, call it a natural culling. You don't need them to cheer for you when you win. You need them to be gone, so you can focus on the climb. 6. Motivation is a trap. Discipline is the way. I didn't win because I felt inspired every morning. I won because I did the work, even on the days I felt completely empty. Motivation is a fleeting mood. Discipline is a permanent choice. 7. Become your own support system. You are waiting for a mentor or a partner to validate you? Stop. You are the mentor. You are the cheerleader. You are the one who needs to look in the mirror and tell yourself to keep going. 8. Invisible progress is still progress. The world only sees the trophy, never the sweat. Don't chase the limelight. Chase the improvement. The work you do when nobody is watching is exactly what defines your success. 9. Repetition is the secret sauce. I wasn't some genius. I was just someone who did the same simple, boring tasks every single day for years. That consistency is what makes you unstoppable. 10. Don't chase fame, chase transformation. The real prize wasn't the money or the status. It was the person I had to become to earn them. The patience, the grit, the focus. That is the real reward. 11. You don't need a head start, you need a start. I had no fancy degree, no mentor, and no cash. I had a phone with a cracked screen and a stubborn refusal to stay at the bottom. You have everything you need to start right where you are. 12. Win for your own truth. I didn't build my life to get back at the people who laughed at me. I built it to prove to myself that I was right all along. Revenge is a waste of energy. Self-actualization is the ultimate victory. 13. You are enough. If you are still listening, you've got the fire. You don't need the world to believe in you. You just need one person to look in the mirror and say, I'm doing this no matter what. That person is you. Start now, keep going, and let the world catch up whenever it decides to wake up.